Hello friends, good afternoon, greetings to all of you. So here I, Kunal Nagpal, welcome you back to our great economic session. Dear friends, I hope you all are basically relaxing today afternoon in the glowing sunlight, and it's basically a sigh of relief in the chilling winters. And today I have a lot of good news to share with you. A lot of favorable economic aspects are coming in our economy. So here it goes. Firstly, I would like to begin with the basic news highlights. That is the summary of the basic news highlights related to our economy. Then I would like to focus on two main highlights of today. That is, the wholesale inflation drops to 21-month low of 5.85% in November. This is really a fantastic news. Recently, we had seen that CPI inflation, the consumer price index inflation, also dropped to nearly 11-month low of 5.88% in November. Now, the WPI inflation has also dropped to 21-month low of 5.85% in November. We are going to have the detailed analytical framework on this particular aspect. The next highlight is our Finance Minister, Dr. Nirmala Sitharaman ji, comments that Indian economy is gradually coming on track to meet the fiscal deficit target of 6.4%. Again, we are going to have the detailed analysis and the in-depth discussion on this particular aspect as well. Now let's begin with the summary of today's economic news. The basic geographical indications tag for the Maharashtra's white onion and Assam's gamosa. The government has granted the geographical indications tag to various products including gamosa of Assam, tender red gram of Telangana, and an apricot variety of Ladakh. Next, wholesale inflation drops to 21-month low of 5.85% in November. India's wholesale price eased to a 21-month low of 5.85% in November, helped by the softening in prices of food, fuel, and manufactured items, official data released on Wednesday showed. And as per the Finance Minister, Indian economy is coming on track to meet the fiscal deficit target of 6.4%. The Finance Minister, Dr. Nirmala Sitharaman, on Wednesday, that is 14th December 2022, said the government is actually coming on course to meet the financial year 2023 fiscal deficit target of 6.4% of GDP, and asserted that actually there is no fear of stagflation now. Rice, potato, edible oil prices fall up to 25%. The prices of rice, edible oils, and potato, the major kitchen staples in Indian households, have fallen by up to 25% in the last fortnight, bringing much relief to the consumers reeling under the inflationary pressure due to the rising food prices. Next, India insists on duty-free access for the textile exports in the foreign trade agreements. The Commerce and Industry Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal, on Wednesday, that is 14th December, said India insists on getting the duty-free access for its textiles exports in the free trade agreements, and that the country would achieve $100 billion exports target by 2030. The Textile PLI 2.0 likely to be finalized early next year. The government is likely to finalize the second edition of the Production-Linked Incentive Scheme, that is the PLI scheme for garments, made-ups, and home textiles early next year, with a focus on promoting small and medium entities, officials said on 14th December. Now, dear guys, we are going to have the basic analytical framework of two main news highlights of today. Firstly, Wholesale inflation drops to 21-month low of 5.85% in November. Truly spectacular. India's wholesale price rise eased to a 21-month low of 5.85% in November, helped by softening in prices of food, fuel, and manufactured items. Official data released on Wednesday showed the country's wholesale price index stood at 8.39% in the previous month and at 14.87% in November 2021. The fall in the wholesale inflation adds to the cheer after retail inflation, that is CPI, eased to below the Reserve Bank of India's upper target of 6% for the first time in 11 months in November at 5.88%, hence strengthening the case for a pause in the monetary tightening. With both WPI and CPI losing momentum, the hopes of a pause from the Reserve Bank of India in the coming meeting have likely risen, said Mr. Rahul Bajoria, Managing Director and Head of Emerging Markets Asia ex-China Economics at Barclays. With CPI inflation returning within the target band, with international commodity prices down from their highs, we expect the headline inflation to fall further in the coming months. This is truly a brilliant news, and I'm feeling so proud to be an Indian. This should pave the path for the RBI to pause increasing rates after delivering a final 25 basis points hike in February, which would take the repo rate to 6.5%, Mr. Bajoria added. The easing in the WPI inflation was led by all the three broad segments. That is, what were the main reasons for the easing of the WPI inflation? Primary articles, fuel and light, and manufacturing. So, on a month-on-month seasonally adjusted basis, WPI recorded a decline of 0.15% in November, indicating easing of the supply side pressures. So the Finance Minister, Dr. Nirmala Sitharaman, told the Parliament that the government will work for the common man to further bring down inflation. And that's what the true trait of a charismatic leader is. It's truly fantastic. And my dear friends, I'm going to remind you once again that we are currently living in a global economy which is having a lot of disturbances, a lot of uncertainties, and a lot of unforeseeable factors may come into play in the near future. But still, our economy is progressing, inflation is coming down, both WPI and CPI inflation coming down, the growth prospects are enhancing. What else do we want? Employment is also improving. This is really such a good sign, and if we do the comparative analysis with the rest of the countries, we are performing much better. We are performing in an excellent manner towards the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals. The only work which we need to do there is to enhance the infrastructural development for the laying of gas pipelines in order to make our economy the hydrogen-based economy by 2030. So we are on a good track, and this is really the reason to celebrate and keep our spirits really high. Further, Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji and his group of ministers and officers are taking the periodic interventions and measures to manage or control inflation, of which we find the results coming in, Dr. Nirmala Sitharaman said while replying to the supplementary demands for the grants for 2022-23 in the Lok Sabha. Economists basically expect further moderation in the wholesale inflation. India Ratings and Research believes that the base effect coupled with softening of the commodity prices would help the wholesale inflation to moderate further, and the same is expected to be below 5% in December 2022. Mr. Sunil K. Sinha, principal economist at India Ratings and Research, said. Ms. Rajni Sinha, chief economist at CareEdge, said, overall reduction in the global commodity prices is also comforting for inflation. And what's the reason for the global inflation coming down? That's the consequence of the resultant factor of the global monetary tightening policies by the central banks worldwide. Bank of Baroda, in a research note, said, with the Russian Federation rejoining the Black Sea Grain Initiative for safe transportation of grains and other food items from Ukraine ports, wheat prices are expected to see some volatility in the coming months. The core WPI softened to 2-year low of 3.5% in November. Going ahead, we expect further easing in WPI inflation. For the primary articles segment, the inflation rate in November stood at 5.52% as against 11.04% in the preceding month, while for the food articles, inflation eased to 2.17% last month, that is in November, from 6.48% in the month of October. Fuel and power inflation eased to 17.35% from 23.17%, while inflation for the manufactured products came in at 3.59% in November compared to 4.42% in October. Isn't it really fantastic? These statistical figures are so encouraging. So the inflation in food articles in November was 1.07% against 8.33% in the previous month, that is October. So this is really so encouraging, so encouraging. I can't express my feelings here fully. And I really believe you would also be actually dancing after listening to these statistical figures. Yes, this is the cause of real celebration, dear guys. And this is all the result of the overall stability, overall patience, overall charismatic leadership traits, and the overall dynamism shown by our respected leaders. How far-sighted and visionary they are, that in such a turmoil-like situation existing in the global economy, they are able to deliver the excellent or beyond excellent results. Had the global situation been normal, without any war, without any crisis, where we would have reached, no one can imagine actually, because we really need to bow in front of our great leaders, and the only support which we can give to them is just don't engage in the short term in the short term disturbances, that is doubting their extreme perseverant and consistent attitude of making our country touch the sky. We should believe them, trust them fully, because we have surrendered our economy in such responsible hands and the results are in front of us. What else do we want, guys? What else do we want? So I really hope that these two sessions would have benefited you immensely in developing the holistic picture of the Indian economy, and these great news which are really worth celebration would help you to to develop an everlasting charm on your faces, and let's this zeal continue, and let's support our government to the fullest so that they can be able to deal with any type of unforeseeable crisis in future. Because, dear friends, the global scenario is actually quite uncertain and volatile as of now, and it may get intensified at a higher level in the near future, as all of us are aware of. Thank you so much. That's all for the day. Namaskar. Jai Hind.